Thank you, Zulema. Thank you, Malcolm. And thank you, Greg Freiman. The next people I'm going to introduce, well, actually, I'm going to introduce Mr. Jerome Tilghman, and he will be introducing a couple more people. Jerome is a very well-known here in El Paso. He's a retired Army colonel. He's an El Paso educator and a well-known radio talk show personality. Would everyone give a hand in welcoming Mr. Jerome Tilghman?
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the promotion. Retired Army major, and got a look at the retirement check in the mail just the other day, and it's very sobering. I'm very grateful for it. But I would take more if they made me a colonel, but I'll stay with what I am right now. I am going to approach my comments a little bit differently than some things you've heard today already. Number one, I want to say that I rarely come to a microphone to cause people to come to their feet. When I speak, I like people to come to their senses. And I'm proud to say I'm a friend of Greg Freiman. We met across a microphone table over on Oregon Street about 15 years ago. The issue was over political philosophy, and we got a chance to facilitate discourse between and among the citizens of this city. You can't ask for a greater responsibility, a greater task, and a greater challenge. And I think I'm a better individual for it today. That's number one. Number two, let me say this. That every private citizen has a public responsibility to be in tune and informed with the direction and destiny of the community where they choose to make a living and where they chose to make their homes. And too oftentimes we come to the arena of political participation, but we oftentimes take a seat in the bleachers instead of strapping on the helmets, putting on the cleats, putting on the pads, getting out on the playing field and mixing it up. So I'm glad to see the few but the proud out here who are suited up, helmets on, cleats on, ready to get out there and mix it up so we can win a game and win a season for those who treasure the direction and destiny of this community and this country. One of the ironies, I believe, in the political process is where we have the capacity to have the greatest influence is where we tend to be involved the least. We take a look at presidential elections every 4 years, and we will give ourselves a psychological massage, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, and we'll go to the polls and proudly say we supported the president, whoever that president might happen to be. But when you take a look at things such as school board elections, and the school board handles the largest slice of the public checkbook, the largest piece that's taken out of your property tax comes from the public education system, and those folks are sometimes elected with the least amount of fiscal knowledge, fiscal literacy, and oftentimes the fewest number of votes. That's a sin in this community, and we need to repent, we need to improve, and I want to encourage you to do that. We seem to find some comfort in going before city council because the TV cameras are there. But at the school board, they're not. But the budget for the city is half that of the school district. But we don't take the kinds of time to appear, to talk to those persons who actually legislate the menu, the food that our children will eat, the curriculum they must follow. They are the ones that define and determine what success will be academically, and will ultimately determine the direction and destiny of the future of this country, because the social, economic, and political future of this country is in the classroom right now. Too often it's neglected, and we need to pay closer attention to it. I like to use an analogy that I think all of you can relate to, and I told this story before. I get teased about it sometimes. Oftentimes, our government entities, and there are 5 basic ones, I say they behave like 5 ticks on a dog. Everybody sucks as much blood as they want. They realize, but they don't realize that there are 4 other ticks on the dog. But they don't think that. I think I own this dog and I'm gonna suck as much blood as I want. But the American Heart Association taught us a lesson in that too. It said if you keep sucking blood from one donor, eventually you're gonna kill the source. Take a look around the room and look at the source. If we allow ourselves to be stuck like that, and not say something to the dog, then we are going to be sucked dry and chase those businesses to places like Las Cruces. I think Zulema had mentioned that. So we have got to be careful about where we pay attention and whose attention we want to get when we go to the polls. And it's not just during presidential elections, but it's between the elections. Those city council races are significant. Those school board races are significant. The board of trustees for the community college are significant. And I challenge you to be just as energized and just as focused on who we hand the reins of responsibility to there. Let me say this as well, and I know our time is limited. My comments are less about political philosophy and more about math. I think there's simple mathematics that we need to come to grips with for what is happening at the national level and how it trickles down and affects us. This is the Easter season, and I want to speak about a crucifix. There's a crucifix on our shoulder that's made heavier and heavier by persons who don't have any knowledge about what it's like to have to carry it. Those persons on Capitol Hill can put all the weight on the crucifix, but no one ever asked them to carry it because they won't. So we need to make sure that that crucifix is taken off. How do we do that? We need to make sure we are picking better people who go forward to make the decisions at the national level. If we don't get smarter at who we choose, if we are simply wedded to a philosophy, and I think that the gentleman who came up to talk about who we pick and how we pick, if we are not smarter, if we don't get smart about who we choose, as Greg said and I talk about very often, we will get exactly what we deserve, and we will suffer from the byproducts of our collective neglect. When we don't make ourselves smart, we pay for that. If you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Let me say to you that as much as we might want to bash the president, whether it was Bush or Obama, let me say that anytime the president writes a check, that check is only made good if the Congress says so. So we want to make sure we put everybody on the bullseye and not just finger one particular individual. The president can't make a move unless the Congress says it's okay to do it. He can write all the checks he wants, but they're no good if the Congress and the Appropriations Committee doesn't make that check good. So we got to make sure we're looking at both sides of Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm going to tell two stories and I'm going to take my seat. Number one, the year was 1588. It was the Spanish Armada. The Spanish Armada was viewed to be the most powerful military on the planet at that time. It had decided it was angry with England. It was going to go try to take it over. It had 160 vessels. That was considered a large amount at the time. That was considered a very large amount at the time. But what had happened was this. When the Spanish began to sail, they went in with a measure of arrogance because they thought size and mass made them mightier than the smaller English fleet. Now, to make the correlation with government, don't think that because it's big, we sometimes equate large and massive with effectiveness. And those two are not synonymous. Well, what happened was the English defeated the Spanish Armada. 600 years later, a midshipman at the United States Naval Academy was asked the question, how did it happen? So he says to the professor of military science, he says, you know, the Spanish were lacking 5 ships. The professor of military science says back to him, he says, if the ratio of ships was 2 to 1 in favor of the Spanish, how is it that the Spanish were lacking 5 ships and that's why they lost the battle? So the midshipman recited, I want to make sure I get this right, so I'm going to refer to my notes. The midshipman said they were lacking craftsmanship, they were lacking leadership, stewardship, fellowship, and comradeship. If you belong to an organization that does not have those 5 ships, your armada is going to sink. I don't care where you're sailing. If you don't have those 5 ships as part of your armada is going to sink. The second point I want to bring up is this. In this Easter season, we talk again about carrying the crucifix, and we are all carrying one in whatever capacity. First, I want to say that there are soldiers who are making sure that these kinds of organizations can exist and that our First Amendment protections are preserved with every deployment that they make off of the contiguous 48 states. We need to give offer a round of applause to those people who make this a guarantee for us. But imagine this, and I want to speak biblically for just a minute. If you only talk to the people in the pew at your church, you are talking to people who are already where you think they need to be. The challenge is not to evangelize those who are comfortable to hear what you know they're going to say and what they know how you're going to respond. The question and the challenge I put to you is for those people who are ignorant by choice. I call them IBC. They're ignorant by choice, who don't understand the depth and the fathom of the political process and how deep, wide, and long those tentacles are. If we are not talking to people who don't see it the same way we do, we are suffering from the byproducts of our collective neglect. You need to start talking to people who don't see it like you, all right, who might disagree with your political philosophy, whatever it might happen to be, and see if somewhere between what you have to say and what I have to say, 2 people are made smarter by talking to somebody they disagree with. That's how your mind grows, ladies and gentlemen. Talking to people who don't see it your way. Try to educate them, and guess what? You might get a little education yourself. Thanks a bunch for my chance to speak. And I'm going to call up the next 2 speakers.